Look, I spoke last week about what I call the appalling housing crisis across the country. I noted that in New South Wales, the man appointed the building commissioner, without his appointment going to cabinet, I might add, David Chandler, had resigned, presumably because he couldn't get his own way with the now sacked Minister Patinos. Premier Perrottet had better not reinstate Chandler. He's been part of the housing problem, not the solution. But as I've said often, even if young people could find a house for $500,000, and that's at the lower end, isn't it, of the range, after they've paid off their HECS debt and paid rent, how can a young person, or any person, save the 20% deposit needed on a $500,000 house? That's $100,000. The result is that people who have suffered from the bushfires and the floods are still without a home, but they can't afford exorbitant rent. A bronze sculpture has been unveiled at the New South Wales Rural Fire Services State Training Academy in Dubbo. It shows the volunteer firefighter Chris Montgomery taking a rest as the fires continued to come. His fire truck was out of water and the nearest dam was behind a wall of roaring flames. Chris Montgomery, a volunteer with the Carwoola Brigade near his home in Queanbeyan, put his head down, isn't that beautiful? Put his head down to get a breath of air and to try to clear the smoke out of his eyes, leaning on his rake hoe. There is the sculpture. Beautiful stuff. Well, it is extraordinary, isn't it? Because these people have suffered, and at the end of the day, what's happening? While this sculpture serves as an artistic symbol of every firefighter, it shames us all to know that we are beginning to look like the Australia of the Depression. Tradies, families, even business owners and professionals devastated by floods and bushfires are living in shanty towns, motels, cars. They can't find housing. The rental market's tight. There's a car park along Lake Illawarra near Wollongong in New South Wales that looks like a homeless township. Suicide rates escalate, and people who've never experienced homelessness before are frozen out. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is taking a week off for a holiday, following what he describes as a busy first sitting fortnight, work for 2 weeks. Not a whimper from the lefties in the media who went after the then Prime Minister Morrison, who dared to take a holiday. But does no one in Canberra understand the trauma of not having a home and being shoved onto the streets? That must be the case because they're doing nothing about it. Builders are being held up everywhere by red tape. I said last week, hundreds of multi-million-dollar development applications, which would generate thousands of homes and jobs, especially in New South Wales, are stuck in the planning system. And then even when approval has come, there are bureaucratic bullies like the Building Commissioner Chandler who issue threats instead of instructive support. We have a building and construction industry where developers are treated like criminals. Yet the building industry is the golden goose that lays the record stamp duty revenue egg. Why do we have the least housing stock per adult in the developed world? Why do the states of Australia have less housing stock per adult in 2021 than we did in 2016, even though there's been a massive population increase? Why doesn't the Prime Minister give up his 1 week holiday to answer this question? What are you doing about housing affordability, housing supply, key worker accommodation and affordable rent? PM, visit this week some of the most productive agricultural land in the world, the Darling Downs, the Liverpool Plains and the glorious agricultural country in northwest Victoria. How much would this productive land cost per acre? 2.2 hectares. How much an acre? The answer would vary, $6,000 to $8,000 an acre. Certainly not $10,000. But then next Saturday, go to Castle Hill, 30 kilometres from Sydney's CBD, and try to buy a quarter-acre block. You'll struggle to get anything under $1 million, which means that unproductive land on which you need to build a house is not $8,000 an acre, like the best agricultural land, but $4 million an acre. It's not the cost of a house that's the problem. It's the cost of the land on which the house has to be built. It's killing Australians. But instead of addressing the issue, parliamentarians head off on holidays. Can someone govern in the public interest? The hard-working homeless are not much interested in what the temperature might be in 30 years' time or what the voice is. They want a roof over their heads, a problem to which governments have no answers. And if that's the case, what then is government for?